Hi, everybody. I'm Trin Johnson. Welcome to Dust in My Eye. So, today I am going to be painting a monochromatic painting, which is painting in one color. And I had this barn drawn up, so I thought I'll go ahead and paint that. You can do this with any subject matter. Now, I've done this before in my class, and this is one of the barn paintings I did, not monochromatic. And this is another one that I did that's not monochromatic. And then these are just some examples of monochromatic paintings. This one does have some white on it, but otherwise you would consider it a monochromatic painting. This one is all rose of ultramarine, I think it's called. Then we have this last one, which is a monochromatic painting of a barn, which when I went to go find all this, I realized that the last time we did monochromatic paintings in art class, I brought in just a general selection of reference work or reference materials. And one of the things I brought was the barn reference from when we did the other barns. And apparently that's what I used. So we don't have to use barns. We can use anything we want. And I encourage you to use something other than a barn, but you could do a different kind of building, or you could do flowers like the weeds here. Those were kind of fun. Anyway, pick a color you really, really like to work in because that's kind of cool. Make sure it's a color that's dark enough that you can get a variety of values out of it, because if you pick too light of a color, you're never going to get dark. So it should be a dark color to begin with, something with a lot of pigment. And then we'll go to town and we're going to go ahead and paint this one. So let me get everything set up, and that's what we're going to do. If that sounds like fun to you, please stick around. And if you could hit subscribe and the like button, that would be wonderful. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. And I'm going to get set up and be right back. So I was trying to decide what color I was going to use, and I was thinking about purple, but the picture has a lot of really golden highlights in it, and I just didn't want to lose that to such a moody color, dark, I thought I would go with a rusty color instead. So this is a combination of trans red oxide and sepia. And that's going to be my color, that mix, not both colors, just that color, a mixed color. Because not all of these colors that you would pick from are a single pigment. They might be. They don't have to be to do this experiment here. And I'm not going to worry about going to the edges of my page. That's another thing I'm just not going to stress over. I don't know if you can see my drawing. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit in some places. And it's going to be interesting because it will be an orange colored sky, which there is a song called Orange Colored Sky. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just treat it like I would if I was painting in any other color. And right now I'm just going to do a little clear water around all my shapes here that delineate the sky. A nice big mop brush. It's a quill brush. I love quill brushes. I'm not going to get real finicky. I just want to get that wash in. And then when I come in next, I'm going to try and do it soon enough that it isn't completely dried down here, because I want to utilize that mark right there. But right now I don't want to have it wet below that area. So I am just going to drop in my brown sky, which is very odd. There's a frizzle there. This might let him dry in there and then get it out. Now, it's the darkest part of the sky, but even the darkest part of the sky is not very dark compared to the rest of the painting, the rest of the scene. Yeah, that's just a little. So I want this really light. It will dry lighter too. You have to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to do what I would normally do if it was a blue sky, and I'm going to do a little cloud blotting. Soften those puppies up a little bit. There we go. Okay. One thing is, your dirty water is always going to be the right color. Now, while that's still a little damp up there, I am going to go ahead. Let's start over here, because I would like my bushes and such to bleed into the sky. And the thing you have to remember when you're doing a monochromatic painting is everything is reliant on the values. You can't say, oh, well, you can differentiate that from that because it's going to be a different color, because it's not going to be a different color. It's all going to be the same color, just different values of the same color. So this part is not dark. It's still pretty light. It's darker than the sky. But in the overall picture, it's still pretty light. I would recommend that whatever, oh, I took too much of it away. Whatever picture you use, whatever reference photo you use, print it out in black and white, or, if you're looking on your phone or an iPad, have a black and white reference version of it, because it will help you figure out whether you've got the values right or not. Using the little red thing helps too, the value finder, the piece of red plastic that I have. Of course, do I have that right by me? No, because that would have been, proactive. Now this has some darker spots in it, so I will probably come back in here, see if I can add some other things in here as it's trying, because right now it's not going to want to take that. It will just mush. So it's got to be a little bit drier than it is currently for me to drop darker, more pigmented areas in there. Now the lightest part one of the lightest parts is this barn. Is this part of this barn. So I'm going to come in here very light. And I can add some details, some of the spaces between the barn, the wood slats after. But right now I'm just going to do this whole side of the barn light because the light is coming this way. And this part of the silo is also very light. And then it's lighter on this side too, and kind of medium, and then dark in the middle. Let's do that. It is, even though it's light, it still is darker, I believe, than the clouds next to it. So we're going to just do that. That one's kind of a tough read. It's hard to tell when I squint which one's lighter. All right, let's see if I can drop some darker. Pigment in here. It's kind of hard when the value has to tell the whole story. You can't rely on the color changing to tell any of the story. A little dark line there. Kind of medium is the roof. Okay. It's a very light little strip here, but I don't know if I'd be able to get that to pop or not. What I need to do is wait for it to dry so that I can lift a little bit. All right, the tree. Darker down here at the bottom. At this side. There's some vines growing up the side of the silo. little hill in the background. You know, you don't have to think about changing colors. So in some ways, it's a little bit faster moving. It's kind of like doing a no-tan as you're painting, which is a value study. Now I may go back in and put a cloud against the edge of this and decide that I'd rather have the sky be darker to make it pop. Trying to get a little dry brush on the building, give it some texture. Let that dry before I try and make that more obvious. All right, let's get some color in the front here. To mix up some more paint. That's all the light kind of coming across. Now I'm going to let that dry and then come in with the shadow one. But if I do it right now, it'll just go blue into everything, and that is not going to help me. Okay, we still need to darken up some things to make them pop away from the background. And putting your hand in the wet paint is, you know, not the smartest way to do this. This is a bunch of windows and doors and things. Did it again. So hard to avoid that big wet spot there. These are like cracks between the boards. And there's a little bit of a shadow of the tree. I think that's what it is. Oh, it's just there's just something dark on the side of the barn. I'm just gonna use it for variation. It's kind of a medium over there tone. I think I could get our shadows. Oops, that was the wrong color I just mixed in with that. Not what I want. It's from the sun shining across the field. All right, I think we just need to do a little bit of finesse and darkening up some areas to make them pop a little more. Okay, I think one last thing I want to do after this. It's really hard to get that darkest dark. And I thought I picked a pretty dark kind of color, but it just doesn't want to be as dark as I want it to be. Because it just, as it dries, it lightens. So keep that in mind. It can only get as dark as the color you chose will allow. And that's where you're going to end up. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is do a little splattering. I'm never good at doing it with my finger in the field. Might be too big. Yeah, that's too big. Let's try that again with a smaller brush. That's better. Okay, I don't want it in the sky. I could have blocked it off. I just didn't feel like bothering. But by all means, put a piece of paper towel down or something if you want to do that. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it. Doing a quick little monochromatic painting. I did have it already drawn. You don't need a complicated scene. The simpler the better, I think, because it's really hard to get in there and judge all the little nitty-gritty details. This was pretty straightforward. A nice big sky is kind of cool, especially if you're using a funky color. It makes it obvious that this is going to be different. And I hope you enjoyed it. So if you would like to, please check out my Etsy shop where I have prints of my artwork along with cute little monsters and other fun stuff for sale. Once again, thank you so much for watching.